What's up everyone, it's Goose. We're going to go over this FGN Iliad 7, and it's actually become one of my favorite guitars to use, if not the favorite. I bought this guitar back in May. For the 8 months that I've been using it, it has quickly become the guitar that I pick up, largely because of just how it feels in the hands. And the reason why I got it though was actually just because I had ordered a custom guitar from Black Cat, and they are located in Poland, which is neighboring Ukraine. With that whole situation happening there, it caused delays. It actually did affect Poland as well with the refugees going in, and so my guitar was delayed, and I was completely okay with that. My guitar can definitely wait if it means people are better taken care of and whatnot. There was no problem with me waiting for the guitar. However, I did get this guitar kind of in lieu of that. Originally, I had been using an Ibanez 7-string, which I've now sold, and I have 2 videos on that 7-string, one about how it was my favorite guitar, and then another about how I kind of fell out of love with that guitar, and that was because I got this one. And that Black Cat guitar was kind of half the reason why I was looking around, but also that I liked my Ibanez so much that I wanted something similar to an Ibanez. Ibanez makes an FR shape. I'll post the picture right here so y'all can see what that looks like. I actually stumbled upon this shape, which is kind of the same thing. So the Iliad is basically a Telecaster-like body, and being a Telecaster body, it is a very different vibe than my Ibanez, which was kind of more of a Super Strat. But I actually kind of fell in love with this body shape a little bit more. But first, let's get into kind of the things about this guitar that I do like without comparing it to the Ibanez. So the first thing you notice when you pick up a guitar like this is everything feels like it's put together so tightly. Like the neck is very, very well seated in here. There's like no visible gaps. Even though it is a bolt-on guitar, it is so tight. Like the tolerances are so small. And it's so impressive because on my other bolt-on guitars, I do see gaps in between the two, like the neck and the body. This one, it's so perfectly fit, it's insane to me. Second of all, I think the one thing that impresses me the most, I actually was super impressed by the fact of how balanced this guitar is. It's really hard to tell, but if I just balance it on my leg, the guitar is literally going to stand up like this without like falling either this way or this way, and it's super well balanced. It's also not that heavy. It feels like the weight's distributed so like well that even though on my scales this is about a 7.8 pound guitar, it doesn't feel like it at all. It actually feels lighter to grab. You have a sort of Ibanez style bridge here, and you have Fishman Fluence Modern pickups, and we'll get to that in a second. There is a push-pull for the 2 voicings of the Fishman. The headstock is not angled. There are trees here for the top 2 strings. However, I haven't had any issues with tuning stability on this guitar whatsoever. I actually think this is one of the best tuning stabilities I've ever experienced on a guitar. And the weirdest thing about this guitar is the circle fret system. If you look at it, you can kind of see that there is a curve. So what circle fretting is, it's basically frets are not only curved with the radius of the fretboard, but also against the angle of the strings. So the angle of the strings going from the nut to the bridge, there is going to be a slight angle, and so what they aim to do with the circle fretting system is to make sure each string hits the fret at 90 degrees. How much this affects playing, I really don't know. I couldn't tell you. It feels just like a regular straight fret guitar, and for replacing the frets too, and this is kind of important because I don't really see people talking about it. Apparently they can just put frets in and just like knock it into place. So for replacing frets, apparently it's not really a big deal either. These are nickel frets, so eventually in the future I will want to get these replaced with stainless steel frets. But this neck shape is actually really, really normal. I don't know how to describe it other than that. It's kind of a C shape. It's not quite as thin as an Ibanez. And the neck shape is very comfortable. It doesn't feel out of place. It doesn't feel too big. It doesn't feel too small. It just feels kind of just right. It's very smooth and just really easy to move on, and it makes really getting around the fretboard really easily. I don't know if this is the combination of the radius of the fretboard along with the size of the neck, but I'm starting to kind of think that like the balance of the guitar is what's really making this guitar feel really good. This is a compound radius fretboard, and I think along with the shape of the neck, it's it just makes this feel super, super easy to play. And the look of this guitar is really, really cool too. I've had a lot of people tell me, is that a Jim Root signature? And it is not, but it does kind of look like a Jim Root signature, doesn't it? So those are just kind of the things I really like about this guitar. I think compared to the Ibanez, it's definitely a more balanced guitar. Again, Fujigen makes the Ibanez Prestige models, so I'd imagine it's on par with the Ibanez Prestige models. I haven't owned a Prestige, but it definitely outclasses my Ibanez Axion label, which is not a Prestige. Yeah, everything just is fitting super perfectly. Like in my Ibanez, I would see slight gaps between the fretboard and the body. When you're playing this guitar, you really, really feel like the most attention to detail was put onto this guitar. Let's get to the sound. So this is the part that I feel like I might have a pretty controversial take considering the popularity of them. The Fishman Fluence Moderns are not my favorite pickup. Fishmans have a weird kind of cocked wah feeling. So for guitar parts that involve kind of higher strings or higher kind of mid to high tones, you end up getting this cocked wah effect in voice 1, and it's somewhat better in voice 2, but actually I don't use voice 1 at all, even though that's what I feel like most people are using nowadays. You just can't dial it out really that easily, and so that's kind of why I don't like it. That's a pretty big part of my playing, because as much as I play metal, I also play a lot of J-rock, which a lot of their phrases are in like this area of the fretboard, and it's kind of annoying. The other thing that I kind of wish that Fishmans didn't do was drain the batteries so much. Within the 8 months of using this, I've had to replace the battery 3 times, which doesn't sound like a lot until you realize that a guitar that I used to own with EMG has lasted over a year on one 9-volt battery. That's a lot of batteries to be going through, I feel like, in comparison to an EMG. Despite it being a very versatile pickup with 2 voicings, neither voice really does it for me. Voice 2 is what I'm usually in because it gives me kind of that more passive low end, which I do appreciate, and you can hear a big difference in how compressed the low end in voice 1 is. So in my opinion, voice 1 sounds not quite as good as voice 2. Voice 2 sounds a lot more natural. I don't actually think the Fluences sound that good with clean tones. The neck is fine, but the bridge really doesn't like clean tones. So the clean tones are okay on the neck pickup. I think they're definitely usable. The bridge really just sounds quacky to me. It doesn't sound good at all in either voicing. It's a little bit more salvageable again in voice 2, but there's a weird volume drop. It's like probably like a 2 dB drop of volume compared to voice 1. And it's really noticeable when I switch between my guitars. The rest of my guitars here are passive, and through the same exact clean patch, they're louder. And for some reason, it feels like Voice 2 is a lower output than those passives, and yet it's still as compressed as like a higher output pickup. It's really strange. So overall, this review kind of sounds like a review of Fishman Moderns, really, but the guitar itself is amazing, and it's really the Fishmans that I probably just need to swap out. Luckily, it's going to be a solderless system, so it'll be really quick. I do have some EMGs on the way, so we'll see how that sounds. But aside from the Fishmans though, this guitar feels amazing to play. I've not felt frets this smooth since I've had my stainless steel guitars, and it's actually really impressive how much just the balance of parts in this guitar come together to make a really, really good guitar. You got a lot of the same parts as Ibanez, like the Goto locking tuners and whatnot, and yet somehow this just feels that much better. This guitar cost me about $1,400, which my Ibanez MSRP's at $1,200, so that's a $200 difference, and you're getting a much better guitar in my opinion in terms of quality. I do wish there was a bevel here on the armrest side of the guitar, but to get this binding, I'm presuming that it's just easier for them to not do that. And it doesn't really bother me as much as I thought it would. It's just, it would be a nice to have. But I think that's going to do it for me with the review of this guitar. It's a great guitar. It really made me rethink about what I love about guitars, and it's really how the guitar makes you feel when you're playing it and how reliable it feels in your hand. I think a lot of times people go for like the specs, the pure sort of by the numbers specs, and there's something to be said about just how well a guitar is put together that really isn't talked about enough. And I think this FGN really proves that even though it's nickel frets, and even though it doesn't have an ergonomic kind of armrest here, how well it's put together really makes up for it. And I cannot think of another guitar that I've ever felt that just feels as well balanced as this one. So yeah, let me know what you think about this guitar and how it sounded. If you liked the video, like and subscribe, and I will see y'all in the next one. Later.